I've repeated many times. As many of you know, I was a small business owner for over 30 years. I pride myself in the relationships that I had with my purveyors and my customers and my employees over those 30 years. I understood that my success as an employer, having met multiple pay responsibilities to my employees, was part of my success. That good employees and good employers work together for the success of the company, whether it's a privately held company or a corporation. I learned clearly in those 30 years that there was an absolute obligation for your success and your return on investment and your profitability to make sure that your employees were well treated. And if employees didn't perform, just like employers and managers, you would hold them accountable. And as a former union member, I know firsthand the benefits of union membership and the power workers' unions have to bridge the gap between workers and their employers to help not only union workers succeed, but all workers. After all, it was a labor movement that built the middle class in the United States by giving employees a voice on the job. And some of our nation's greatest advances for workers, from the 5-day work week to the minimum wage to child labor laws, have been made possible by the labor movement. Americans recognize the importance of unions, which is why over 2/3 support of approval or have approval of labor unions. Not only is public support at a near record high, more and more workers are uniting to demand higher wages, improved benefits, safer workplaces, and we should support them. And those employees work with their employers for their success and for the consumers' and investors' success. As Galbraith put it, labor unions are among the countervailing powers to balance capitalist markets and the interest of corporations. I look forward to this subcommittee and my Republican colleagues having a similar hearing on abuses on the Security Exchange Commission under the former administration in the favor of very wealthy people. Recently, I read that 751 Americans now have $5 trillion worth of wealth. All of that came from middle-class incomes, or much of it, not that just their investment strategies. Today's hearing appears to be focused on the National Relations Board, which during the Biden administration, under Chair McFerrin's leadership, has often reinstated common self and longstanding precedent that was cast aside by prior administrations' boards. In the process of doing so, the NLRB has restored balance between workers and their employers. Not an advantage, but balance. I look forward to discussing those cases today and setting the record straight on them. In spite of our differences, I think all of us want a balanced economy that all Americans benefit from, I think. The bottom line is that Chair McFerrin deserves credit for her leadership and thoughtful approach on balance. President Biden recently recommended her for another 4-year term, and I encourage the Senate to again confirm Ms. McFerrin, just as they did on a bipartisan basis in July of 2020. But I think today's hearing presents an opportunity to hear about how the board really functions and carries out its duties. We are fortunate to have, as one of our witnesses, a Democratic witness, Eileen Goldsmith, a partner in a San Francisco law firm for more than 20 years. Ms. Goldsmith has represented clients who regularly appear before the board in both unfair labor practice and representation cases. She understands how the board works and is supposed to work. She's great to have someone from my neck of the woods, the San Francisco Bay Area, to testify before this subcommittee, and welcome. Thank you for making this trip to D.C. and sharing your expertise. What I think is clear that Ms. Goldsmith's testimony is that the board carries out its duties often on a bipartisan basis, but the board needs additional resources to function effectively for workers and employers and the American public. My Democratic colleagues and I strongly support additional funding for the NLRB to ensure that it can manage its caseload. But as Ms. Goldsmith's testimony makes clear, it is not just resources. Unscrupulous employers can get away with firing workers who try to organize a union. Congress needs to step in and stop that from happening, both for the employees' benefit, but also for high-road employers who follow the letter of the law and the spirit. And that's why we need to pass the Protecting Right to Organize Act, the PRO Act, and continue to uphold our commitment to workers' rights, which are all Americans' rights. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Pursuant to Committee Rule